Hey! Get off my car!
Woo! Freeze the wind!
On my car. You broke my windshield. You better
Get down now, or I'll toss you up! Get off my car!
What's that smell? Smells amazing!
Trying to have custom face.
Rescue teams at risk without all of the extra work people traditionally did at base camp testing their strength before the ascent. Many unprepared climbers started marching to their deaths, like 34-year-old English hiker David Sharp, who made his ascent of Everest from the initial assistance with Asian trekking. Sharp.
Oh, okay. First, let me look into the business situation. I'll come up with an optimized plan for the store, along with risk contingency plans by the end of the day.
Great.
He felt like he could make the rest of the ascent of Everest on his own in what's called an unguided climb. He refused to seek the assistance of Sherpas and only took 2 bottles of oxygen for the ascent. But by the time he reached the death zone, Sharp was reportedly crawling on the verge of total exhaustion. Over 40 climbers passed him as he settled into Green Boots Cave, slowly dying from the lack of oxygen until he eventually perished. It was one of the first widely publicized critiques of the larger commercial expeditions, and Hillary was reportedly outraged about the mismanagement and neglect of a fellow mountaineer. But Sharp wasn't the only tragedy, as the 200 summits on both major sides of the mountain, 12 were found dead. But details surrounding Sharp's death are slightly disputed. Many have pointed out that some Sherpas actually made their way to Sharp's location to supply him with oxygen, but he allegedly refused to move and only wanted to be sleep. There's only so much someone else can do to help someone in the dead zone. Not like you can feel the pain downtown. You definitely can't rescue them with a helicopter. Sharp's death serves as a warning about unguided crimes surrounding Sherpas. And again, Sherpas are not invincible. They can die and experience climbers without Sherpas are starting to be more by paying customers as service workers rather than expedition partners. In 1992, for example, when the first commercial mountaineering expeditions on Everest began, 1 Sherpa and 65 mountaineers summited. 1 Sherpa for 3 climbs. Nowadays, fewer people Sherpas for each member of the commercial expeditions come. One YouTuber explained how this guy was doing all the work for them so they could move faster.
I'm telling you, you can't just charge forward.
I will see through the Nexus.
Of course, this has a lot to do with the fact that today's Sherpa will basically do anything requested when working for larger companies. On top of guiding you up the mountain, the Sherpas are then setting up plus bedroom tents with showers and steps up basement. They set up these spa treatment facilities, the medical stations, and even flying up and down the mountain collecting these large mountains of trash to pollute an entire altitude plants from hikers don't want to expend too much energy bringing it back down. And most of these members Sherpas don't even want to do this anymore. But due to their isolation and poverty, most of them feel like they have no other choice.
Da?
The wind's just right.
Na umbuga bodo.
These orders. When will it end? The store's overloaded with orders, and we're short-staffed. Can you help us out? Paid per job.
And as a result, every spring season leads to
Got it. This one is a large cargo.
And as a result, every spring season leads to more and more Sherpas carrying unnecessary ugly supplies to different camps along Everest, risking the possibility of death. 2014, dozens of Sherpas were transporting supplies from base camp only for 6 against to be buried after a fatal avalanche. According to the Himalayan database, the ledger keeper of the human death toll in mountaineering, 132 climbing Sherpas have perished on Everest's slopes. 28 in the past decade alone. Additionally, while foreign climbers pay over $50,000 per climb, a climbing Sherpa will receive ranges from $2,000 to $5,000 per season, including multiple climbs. But the Nepalese government sees tourism as a valuable revenue stream for the country. The industry grows bigger every year with little consideration for the Sherpas. And the Norgate on-site Norbu has called it out for the troubling business it actually is. But the worst part of the luxury marketing and Sherpa exploitation is that it's attracted more and more of these wrong types of people interested in climbing Mount Everest, which is why you see numbskulls like this doing backflips at the peak of the mountain. Sherpas saying to themselves, if you had so much extra energy,
A new machine just got here and a player already smashed it trying to clear a level.
Everest's continued popularity has led to some of the most disturbing and honestly embarrassing stories the mountain has ever seen. In 2012, a Canadian woman named Shreya was desperate to make her way up to the Mount Everest summit in the middle of a short climbing season. Ironically, she was born in Nepal, here in Greece, but spent most of her life in India and finally Canada. However, when her father flew her up in a helicopter as a child to see the top of Everest, she became convinced it was her destiny to reach the summit on her own 2 feet. But regardless of her Nepalese heritage and patriotic ambitions, Shreya was not a professional climber. Her training leading up to Everest was rock climbing at their local gym, martial arts, carrying a 44-pound backpack for 11-mile runs in cold weather. These were impressive fitness regimens, but using it as training for Everest is like saying daily walks in your neighborhood qualifies you for an Ironman challenge. Wearing rented gear and posing in front of a green screen for a fake Everest photo, Shreya created a website to ask for donations to fund her journey. This is my dream and passion, and I want to do something for my country. Nothing is impossible in this world. Even the word impossible says I'm possible. You'll find this is extremely common for people who want to climb Mount Everest. This is their big dream. This is their magnum opus, and they expect people to care. And to no surprise to all of us, nobody donated to Shreya to help her achieve her dream. So she convinced her husband to pull out a second mortgage on their home to sign with Utmost Adventures for $40,000. She went to basement in Coachella and that mountain skills during that acclimatization, except she had trouble putting on her tampons, which were the modernized version of cotton underweeds that helped climbers to advise in snow. Even when take one of the elementary, basic level skills that a man just has. But an experience was so evident that the board leader actually attempted to scare her away by saying that her attempts to summon would lead to certain death. Once her delusion would also put her climbing partner's lives in jeopardy. So it only got worse when Shreya didn't account for something that had been growing over the last decade on evidence. As more people were attempting to reach the summit in addition to poor weather conditions, traffic jams at the top began to form. It was a phenomenon where many people would try to reach the summit and the weather had been cleared up. An estimated 150 climbers tried to reach the top driving Saturday and they rushed to the regional good weather and otherwise troubled times. And many had to wait on a station camp for several days for their turn to head to the summit. Shown levels of hypoxia that caused a number of turbos to advise their descent. Turbos have hurried such as Desert Toronto when coming around, telling her that she'd already been up in the jet zone too long and warning that the weather was turning. Shreya shook them off.
The store's overloaded with gut. This one is a
fragile.
fragile.
To the top. The climbers are technically supposed to formally agree to listen to their guides, but people's own egos can move to make their minds. The problem is that if she doesn't listen, there is no way we can tear her down. Craig says matter-of-factly, she wasn't the only one to ignore his advice. A 16-year-old Nepali girl and a Swiss man also opted to leave. Sadly, the Sherpas would be proven right when Shreya lost her bearings during the descent and slowly started to die. She decided to rest in the death zone, and I think we know what happens when you rest in the death zone. So the critical was determined to be too dangerous to attempt, and she died rather than flying. A PhD counselor takes him into the division, Dr. Todd Grande outlined the overlooked problems of inexperience and, quite frankly, unwealthy people attempting to climb. It is 55 what is the difference every kind of country. The message is not that you care. You have to get another one to take it. You have to get the death in the first place. That is the other interest is the other times they just call. You know, they have to mark. So you can and a settlement now has it for 9 months. Nothing else matters. The one who got married, other people will struggle with life. If you don't have down about it, it's not what you are supposed to do. You're not supposed to do. The original people arguing with the expert turbos knowing that they're going to die has become more common. A turbo man argues that the universe is fighting death zone just to stop climbing. He had a big argument, and it was telling him he was risking the life of turbos as well as his own before he would come down. Walked on there, he went sliding down to the boats. But by the time he reached base camp, he was really grateful. What do you know with Alpine Ascents? Let's talk about how companies are lying to
What a lovely
customers
flower.
because telling them they will likely die isn't good for business. And then inexperienced climbers are lying to themselves because of their desire to become a legend without considering the very real people who would have to deal with the consequences of their actions.
What's going on? We're getting calls like, I heard about the death, but hey, what if they find us? So we're getting 3 or 4 years. But also, unfortunately, people are doing more performance climbs that felt like they've done well, contacting an outfitter saying, give it a try, and they're saying, yeah, so a combination of people misreading what it takes to climb and perhaps some of the guys who are misreading what you expected to climb.
Ooh, where did you get this? You have great taste. I like it.
Because of his demands that the Sherpas would comply to. In 2017, a retired Pakistani colonel named Abdul Baqi arrived at base camp ready to reach the summit. And while he claimed he had summited other mountains easily, most of these senior Sherpas refused to go up the mountain with him. He was 60 years old, incredibly slow, and most of the expedition team felt like assisting him would result in certain death. Now, any normal business would probably take the advice from veteran Sherpas and refuse the service, but Abdul a young Sherpa named Sanjay to take him to the summit. The combination of Sanjay's lack of named Abdul but what's even more insane is the story of a man who did make it back alive, but felt like he didn't get his money's worth because of arrived at base camp ready to reach the summit, and while he claimed to have summited other mountains easily, most of these senior Sherpas refused to go up the mountain with him. He was 60 years old, incredibly slow, and most of the expeditions he felt like assisting him would result in certain death.
Wow.
Thank
you,
take the
Coco.
advice from veteran Sherpas and refuse the service, but Abdul insisted after spending the money and then forced a young Sherpa named Sanjay to take him to the summit. The combination of Sanjay's lack of experience and Abdul's lack of speed turned out to be a
I don't care
disaster.
much about the
By
gift
time they
itself,
reached the South Summit,
but I
before
do
reaching
appreciate
the
your
top of Everest,
effort.
Abdul was already running out of oxygen, on top of the fact that they were waiting behind other climbers. But Abdul, recalling his experience, sounds like a bad Yelp review. The oxygen I was already carrying finished at the South Summit. The second bottle should have brought us back to the South Summit, but it finished at the Everest Summit. He also went on to blame Sanjay or a team member for messing up his bottles, saying, "You may have opened the oxygen valve too much while fitting it on me." Or maybe the cylinder was half full and he didn't check. Who knows? And if it wasn't for the summit fever, the two might have started their descent. But the summit was so close that Sanjay and Abdul decided to go up anyway. Sanjay was visibly suffering, but Abdul didn't seem to care. All he cared about was his self-image on top of the mountain. You could tell that the Sherpa was possibly suffering from hypoxia just by the way he handled the camera. He didn't take a single good photo. He couldn't even hold the camera straight. Cut this part or that part of my body out of the frame. There's only one photo where he managed to get my face properly. But by the time they started the descent, it was too late. Sanjay was losing consciousness, and Abdul could only complain others didn't stop to help. I believe there would have been some oxygen cylinders at one of the dumps. So many people crossed us. I requested them to help. And no one looks
Time
at
for a
me.
change.
One guy asked me if I was from one of the 7 summits. I said yes. From the photo, he just left. Before the two nearly froze to death, a Sherpa led rescue retrieved them, but Sanjay didn't make it out in one piece, losing most of his fingers and later traveling to America for prosthetics. Literally everyone, from mountain experts, Sherpas, agree that Everest is overcrowded and as a result will only lead to more people dying. And the Nepalese government is fully aware of this, but they just make too much money to care about it. How really is this part of it? Anybody going to well qualified? Maybe 2019, Everest experience there was just
Freeze the wind!
Instead of focusing on moderation and safety, Nepal issued a record-breaking
What's that smell? Smells amazing!
People started piling up at base camp. It turned out that the weather was some of the
Freeze
worst
the
they had
wind!
seen in several years. It was now getting into late May, and the opportunities to find a
What's
perfect
that
summit
smell?
window were becoming
Smells
scarce. On average,
amazing!
there are only 7 to 12 days for summit opportunities where people can take their selfies and descend safely. The perfect day in 2019 was on May 22nd.
Freeze the wind!
Faster. Line visits to the summit resembled more of a line to a theme park ride rather than a hike to the world's highest peak. The New York Times followed the story of an Arizona doctor named Ed Doran. He had worked his entire life to reach the summit, only to enter the death zone and see people literally fighting each other for the perfect photo. The Times wrote, climbers were pushing and shoving to take selfies. The flat part of the summit, which he estimated at about the size of 2 ping pong tables, was packed with 15 or 20 people. To get up there, you had to wait hours in a line, chest to chest, one puppy jacket after the next, on an icy, rocky ridge with a several
Leave it to
thousand
me!
foot drop.
Do you want to hang out? I'm free after work.
Deaths this year were caused by people getting held up in the long lines on the last 1,000 feet or so of the climb, unable to get up and down.
Sometimes the common people were, above 6,000 feet, and really, obviously, either not fit or not experienced, and probably shouldn't have been there. Doing witness firsthand the deadly combination, and it certainly wasn't prepared to pass dead bodies that were attached to the safety line.
Everest veteran Mohamed said,
Wait!
"You have to qualify
They're not touching the ground.
But you don't have to qualify to climb the highest mountain in the world. What's wrong with this picture? The probably one of the worst parts
Hurry
of
there,
the
yes.
2019 traffic jam was how people started to turn on each other in the darkest ways when lives were on the line. A lot of people were panicking, worrying about themselves, and nobody thinks about those who are collapsing. It's a question of ethics. We are all on oxygen. You figure out that if you help, you are going to die. A much less experienced climber named Riza Ali recalled, I saw some people like it had no
Wait.
patience. I asked
They're not
people for
touching the
water.
ground.
No one gave me any. People are really obsessed with the summit. They're ready to die for the summit. The other acts of negligence contributed to another record death toll of 11 people that season. The Director General called Everest issued permits and 656 summits. Of these, 393 were Nepalese climbers, mostly porters and guides, who needed no permit. 3 Sherpas died under a collapsed serac while making the route easier for inexperienced hikers to climb the summit, while other climbers died when their health failed due to lack of experience and blind ambition. Across all 13...
Hi.
Are you having lunch now?
What did you say?
Oh, my feet! They're not touching the ground. Are we there yet? Huh? Oh, my feet! They're not touching the ground. Are we there yet? Huh? Huh? Oh, my feet! They're not touching the ground. Are we there yet? Huh? Oh, my feet! They're not touching the ground. Are we there yet? Oh, my feet! They're not touching the ground. Are we there yet? Oh, my feet! They're not touching the ground. Huh? Are we there yet? Huh? Oh, my feet! touching the ground. Huh? Are we there yet? Time for a change! Greetings. Welcome to the witches. Lost souls cling to you. Greetings. Welcome to the witch's house. Your path ahead is shrouded. Hey!
(1,737) reported summits through December of 2025, the overall death rate stands at 1.06 deaths per 100 summits. And while 1% doesn't doesn't sound like a wild number, it's important to remember that most of these successful summits are made by returned climbers, experts, and Sherpas who practically live on the mountain. As Bear Grylls stated, the actual chance in the average climber dying on Everest is about 1 in 6. But for a growing number of people, the dangers don't seem to matter. They can be elderly, have heart conditions, bad lungs, or whatever else, and the statistics show that the danger only makes them more interested in putting themselves and others in harm's way to complete an almost impossible challenge. It seems evident that these climbers are simply searching for something deeper, a purpose or an accomplishment that they can attach to their identity.
Please,
They make
trust me.
deeply emotional documentaries about growth by pushing through near-death moments, even though they put themselves in these situations like and put the emotional burden on their friends and family who care about them. There's a clear difference between them and traditional mountaineers, who are experienced climbers that treat Everest as a challenge to be respected, studied, and executed with precision, even though they too are relying on the decades of experienced Sherpas who engineer these whole climb for them, which is why true mountaineers sometimes regret climbing towards Stars Mountain. So the reason that this as just not a number, this one but they're not doing them very long time. It's not very hard to stop. A lot of them stop. But it's like But the other obvious reason why people are so desperate to do this climb is how the tourism industry, as well as the abundance of social media coverage, has reduced Everest to look like a tough hill to climb up in the cold. Sherpas are constantly resetting and checking the ropes, adjusting the lines,
Oh, my feet.
dead bodies out
They're
of
not
the way.
touching the ground.
Sure, rich clients will make it to their 50-foot heated tent with a ping-pong table and moving stuff. Not to mention that everybody seems to be ignoring the 40 to 50 metric tons of trash from the highest camps that these people leave behind, showing they have absolutely no respect or regard for the mountain or environment. The very top of the mountain is absolutely covered in trash and flags from people leaving behind their marking. At this rate, one day you probably won't even be able to see the snow up there. And the job of cleaning all of this up is once again left for the Sherpas, which is why many of them are trying to quit working for tourists and convince their children to live better lives, even if it leads to less pay. Now, it should mention that Nepal has started experimenting with drones to deliver vital supplies like oxygen bottles into the death zone for safety. If technology and funding are applied to the right places, this would likely lead to fewer deaths, but it also would ruin the very little esteem it still has, because the easier it becomes to climb Mount Everest, the less it actually means to reach the top. What was once the ultimate test of human endurance is becoming something you can just buy, which turns it into nothing more than another overpriced experience sold to you by a giant corporation. It all kind of reminds me of Las Vegas, a place that used to have charm.
What's that smell? Smells
Check out
amazing.
this video to hear how that happened.
Celebrity Oceans. It is such a common story, I feel like it doesn't even shock us anymore when it happens. And it always feels like the same story. A young artist amazes the world with how talented they are. We fall in love with not only their music and their acting, but we fall in love with them, their personality. They always seem so raw and honest. We relate to them. We love their quirks. And as they grow, they become part of our lives, part of our identity.
Freeze the wind. What's that smell? It smells amazing. What's that smell? Smells amazing! Woo! Freeze the wind! What's that smell? Smells amazing! Woo! Freeze the wind! What's that smell? Smells amazing! Woo! Freeze the wind!
Why are you standing on...
Hey!
You broke my windshield. You broke my...
Did you fall and hurt you?
What's that smell? What's that smell? Smells amazing!
Mm-hmm.
Seems like they always mess it up with drugs. It starts with the rumors, maybe a high performance, maybe a public meltdown. You have this sort of love spirit, ruin what they build with drugs. And sometimes they try to get better, sometimes they don't, but then you get this. That Terry, no, not available. They've suffered an overdose. So today we're going to look at the most famous celebrity overdose. Kind of dissect a little bit from a drug therapy. And I've actually not done this.
Music, country music was always a part of the influence of my time.
Please, trust me.
Country music and gospel.
You have to tear it down.
I don't really think I need it. He was famous back in the time where there was a young royal.
I already said I'm not taking any design projects, no matter how.
And it seems like he was escape performances. And just looking at him now, he just was scared.
My feet. They're not touching the ground. Are we there yet? Time for it.
But then some people say, well, he got on the floor and pressed it over. Some people say it was a heart attack caused by drugs. But it seems like what you're operated is that
Here we are. It's been almost 20 years, but it hasn't changed much. As a kid, I always thought this slide was tall and long. Looking at it now, it's actually... Kids never want to play on this exercise equipment. There's no way I could fit in this chair anymore. I can't believe the swing is still here. When did this flower shop open? There used...
Very good. Because she said before she medication in its early hours, where the sound of drugs and the always part.
These potted plants aren't...
Based on context and time period, I can kind of guess on what the upper time is.
This should be a wild...
Probably either benzene, dextrose, or nothing. These are some common uppers. They are
A fresh green plant.
Dextrine is dextrose that is
These potted plants...
Tylenol, and epinephrine.
The balloon flower...
And these medications were given in school for another reason. Narcolepsy, for weight loss medication.
Swings.
Energy and focus. It actually seems like it wasn't super uncommon for those right now. Stay up on shit. Like, don't imagine why not.
Let me see. What did you pick?
It's alongside basically...
How's the cake I made?
It's really good.
Whew.
Now imagine sometimes you might have to do a performance or in the studio. Almost forcefully get creative or charismatic and talkative. In fact, whenever you're seeing me on camera, most of the time I'm doing a version of this medication, so I can hardly take a little. It's kind of a relative of medication. But there's a few side effects to taking these drugs, which is they can make sleep really hard. And that's where downers and the way she said that was good. So finding the list of all the drugs that Elvis took is really hard. He did a lot of drugs, but as a drug nerd, there's two medications that he seems to like a lot. They're very interesting, and they're antihistamines and laxatives. They say allergy medication and medication that makes you feel sick. And on the surface, you might think, if you might have had allergies and constipation, what's the big deal? Well, those two things combined kind of smell like a very certain type of drug addict. You see, antihistamines can be for allergies. They can also be sometimes used for sleep. That goes example for that. But when someone is exposed to it, the common symptom of
I came to my dog video, and I want to say this video is for everyone. Whether you want to
Hey!
look black, or if you're an very bad on that product, or if you have no idea what the name is about, what we need, I'm going to cover all of that. I promise. If you're wondering right now, what next, hi, I'm Dr. Mark, Dr. Grace, and all this type of stuff. And I am a half white American, half society. I'll make that way. The first thing about this discussion of ancient Egyptian race is not new. It's been happening for the last 200 years.
Hey!
This culture of true Egyptians. I've seen this for years since I was a kid. People on Super TikTok will say, look at the ancient Egyptians, these are real ones to bring up. People do math to calculate this stuff. In this article called Counting the Greek Immigration in the First Century to Ptolemaic Rule, this person goes in and calculates the estimated population of Greeks and Egyptians. Are very similar as far as what they are. Of course, it depends on what part of the
Hey!
talk about. For example, by going during Ptolemaic period, 20 to 30% of the people were Greek there. That part of that is the difference. Depending on the religion, a lot of generally it's very, very good places, very hard. I know that more or less they're about the same. I know this might claim that there's no access anywhere else. I think what I'm really saying is the idea of everything one way is quite a stupid idea. Egyptians told you that diverse people, they would go to that way. There's the exception in Africa, no idea, no way not to that way. But you just have a race problem, part of the process of Africa. Is one of the black yes, sometimes the black yes, it depends on find what is what. I think it's countries and ancient part of black history, but in that journey, we do not excuse from them. It is our history. Bye. Because opioids cause working for the body, and that itchiness for a frequent opioid user is very annoying. With some opioid users use antihistamines to get rid of that itchiness, and the reason the laxatives are added to there is long-term opioid use causes severe constipation. And sure enough, my suspicion is confirmed with this 60-minute story. After analyzing body tissue, they reported prices of 10 separate drugs. Jesus ate price. That was just like all the legendary drugs for that day. You had them all. At the top, codeine and morphine produced opioids with Abax, like opioids. Next, we're going legendary. And if you don't know what these are, they're sedative hypnotics. They were actually prescribed for insomnia. So they actually help you sleep. I think a lot of people think that they're like almost MDMA-like. They're not. They're very much a very sedative thing. But the reason why pills were phased out is because people were getting really, really addicted to them. And so they were replaced with benzodiazepines, which is the next one. Valium. The hilarious thing is Valium. Still use today. That's a very common name. They're also very, very, very super careful. But Valium. Valium.
Hey!
we meet again. I have a strange feeling about that shadow.
Mom, what story are you going to tell today? Can't you tell me a new story? If only we had a new storybook. My friends have all been reading The Fox and the Swing. Mom, we just need a new storybook, don't we?
Our museum house is a total...
Hey!